The hits from coast to coast.
Well, now we're up to an American Top 20 Extra by Dave Matthews, a musician who says he doesn't mind if people drop by the studio when he's recording, because he's sure if they like a song that he's working on, then it's definitely something he has to change. Sounds kind of odd, doesn't it? Dave Matthews is the first to admit that it is. He says one of the things that makes his music work is that he doesn't follow the crowd. He says for him, that's what it means to be on the edge. And so when people around him ask if it's okay for them to drop by the recording studio, Dave always says, okay. Not because he likes to have guests there, he actually says he doesn't like it at all, but because he knows that if he isn't annoying them with his music, he isn't doing it right. Dave says, quote, I want to challenge people first and foremost. Entertainment isn't my first priority, unquote. Now, as an AT20 Extra, here's the Dave Matthews Band challenging us with a big hit from 1995. What would you say?
American Top 40.
Well, now we're up to the latest smash for the Dave Matthews Band, who, remember, before ever cutting an album, they were shocked to discover audiences in towns they'd never played before knew the words to all their songs. Dave Matthews says it was back in the early 90s. The band had been struggling in obscurity for years, playing frat parties, beach clubs, and other small venues. They didn't have an album, they didn't have a single, they didn't even have a demo tape. They were just trying to get by playing music. Well, Dave says he realized something was going on when his band from Charlottesville, Virginia, landed a job playing at Williams College up in Vermont. They drove all the way from Virginia to Vermont in their broken-down van, arriving in the middle of a snowstorm. They'd never played in Vermont before. They had never played anywhere near Vermont before. Yet, when they started to perform, they realized the audience was singing along with their songs. Dave says it wasn't just a few of them. All the kids in the audience were singing along, and at one point during the show, I asked them how they knew the words. They said, "We've got tapes." Seems that tapes of the Dave Matthews Band had been passed around from one college campus to another, and without them knowing it, they had developed a cult following, and that eventually led to a recording contract. Nowadays, the Dave Matthews Band has graduated from college cult band to mainstream success. And this week, the first release from their latest CD, Before These Crowded Streets, rolls into our survey at number 37. Here's Stay. Well, now we're up to the Space Between by a band whose leader put a lot of space between himself and his homeland of South Africa, all because of a letter he received on his 18th birthday. Dave Matthews was born in 1967 in Johannesburg, South Africa. When he was just 2, his family moved to New York State, where his physicist father had been offered a job. Then, in 1977, Dave's dad died of cancer, and the 10-year-old moved back to South Africa with his mother. As Dave grew up, he fell in love with all kinds of music, from the Grateful Dead to African folk songs. All was fine until his 18th birthday. That's when he received a letter from the South African government. Dave Matthews was to report for service in the South African Army. That meant at least 2 years of active duty, followed by another decade of reserve duty. But Dave and his family were opposed to South Africa's apartheid policies, and Dave says he wasn't about to enforce those policies, so his family packed up and moved back to the U.S., this time to Charlottesville, Virginia. And that's where the South African singer and songwriter met the American musicians who became his band. The group that this week has survey song number 25 on AT40. Here's the Dave Matthews Band with The Space Between.
You cannot quit me so quickly.
American Top 40.
Filling in for Casey Kasem, I'm Ed McMann. Rising a notch to number 21, here's the new father of twin girls, Dave Matthews, and the Dave Matthews Band with The Space Between.
Casey counts them down.
Here's a band whose leader calls many places home. Dave Matthews was born in Johannesburg, South Africa, but he grew up in Westchester County, New York, and in Charlottesville, Virginia. The Dave Matthews Band with a hit from 2002 now, Where Are You Going?
Counting them down with Casey Kasem. Casey Kasem.
Musician Dave Matthews has a collection of books. Nothing unusual about that. but he's been trying to read those books for the past 17 years. Dave says, when the band formed, I decided I wanted to use my time on the road well. So I started collecting books. It began with about 30 of them. Shakespeare, Hemingway, all the classics. I've lost track of how many books I have now. The problem is Dave can never find the time to read. He says, I'll open a book and start reading it, but I'm usually so tired after a show, I just get a couple of pages in, and then I'm asleep. I guess when I'm finished with them, I'll be ready to retire. Now, here's Dave Matthews and his band with an AT20 Extra from 1995, Ants Marching.
American Top 20.
We're picking up speed as we head for the song at the top of the chart. Well, now we're up to an American Top 20 Extra by the Dave Matthews Band, a group that recently lost a key member. A musician Dave Matthews says they'll miss forever. One of the founding members of the Dave Matthews Band was Leroy Moore. He was a jazz musician who played with a number of combos around Charlottesville, Virginia, and that's where he met Dave Matthews. Dave had written songs he felt needed, quote, more musical depth, and that's what Leroy contributed to the band with his woodwinds, the saxophone, the flute, clarinet, even his wooden penny whistle. A few months ago, Leroy was in an ATV accident on his farm in Virginia. Complications from the accident led to his untimely death at age 46. The day Leroy died, the Dave Matthews Band was performing in Los Angeles, and from the stage, a visibly shaken Dave Matthews paid tribute to his friend, saying, quote, he could pick up an instrument, any instrument, and make beautiful music with it. We will miss him forever. Here's the Dave Matthews Band with an extra from 2002, Every Day.
Pick me up, love. Pick me up, love. Every day. Pick me up, love. Every day.
From 2002, the Dave Matthews Band with an AT20 Extra, Every Day.
Counting them down with Kasem.